Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I'm Movie Micah. Another year has passed by, so like I've done for the last 3 years, it's time to go back over the entire year and rank every movie that I saw from worst to best. 2023 was actually a great year for movies, in my opinion. Definitely the best of the decade so far. But of course, like every year, it has some pretty bad movies too. So let's get to the bottom of the list first. In last place is Peter Pan and Wendy. I knew going in that this movie was going to be terrible because it's a Disney live-action remake. But there's no way to prepare for just how lifeless and boring Peter Pan and Wendy is. It's a remake of one of my favorite animated Disney films. That original Peter Pan story is so good, but it also works because of the energy it has from the animation. If I watched this remake before seeing the original, I would think that story is garbage because there is no magic to be felt in this film. That is a disgrace. There's no point in complaining though. Disney will continue to destroy their past successes with lifeless remakes until the end of time. At number 33 is The Flash. I'm still incredibly confused about the amount of people who were somehow positive on this movie. The Flash never should have seen the light of day. It's not only the horrific visual effects or annoying performance by Ezra Miller that ruins this film, it's every single aspect. The use of these multiverse heroes was sickening, the message of the film was artificial, and every scene had some mind-numbing choices that make you think, how is this a real movie? This is meant to be a heartfelt story about Flash and his mom, but it's hard to feel anything when there's Michael Keaton's Batman being brought back from 30 years ago, only to be killed multiple times, as well as a bunch of dead actors' versions of Superman and Batman being brought back using CGI. This is a multiverse story about letting go of the past. Meanwhile, the main appeal of this film was the old heroes from our past showing up again. This was a disgusting culmination of everything wrong with superhero movies and all of Hollywood movies packed into one giant, fiery mess. It's not just mindless, ugly, boring, or unartistic. It's offensive and embarrassing. I am still in shock that The Flash was released. 32 is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Here's Marvel's version of an offensively bad superhero film. Or maybe that was the Marvels. I don't know, I didn't bother seeing that one. Quantumania had a chance to do something. This is a new world to explore within the Marvel Universe. The quantum realm is so full of mystery and anything could happen in there. Instead, all of the creativity is stripped away, and the quantum realm is just a new society that looks like any old generic alien planet. There's nothing worth talking about. Kang is in it, Bill Murray's in it, there's ants, there's MODOK. What we're left with is a corpse of a film led by an abysmal group of characters outside of Scott, and a terrible introduction of the next Thanos. Over and over, Marvel continues to prove that they're done trying. I didn't want to listen, but I think I finally believe them. 31 is Transformers: Rise of the Beasts. Giant gorilla robots fight giant robots. Don't watch this movie. Number 30 is Shazam! Fury of the Gods. I liked the first Shazam, but this was not good at all. It has none of the charm of the first, and Billy as a character seems to undevelop as these films go along. The Shazam family is even worse than before, and the new villains are so bland and lame. There were no good ideas for a Shazam sequel, but they made one anyway. There's a dragon, and some unicorns, and there are lots of Skittles. Taste the Rainbow is said multiple times in this theatrically released DC movie. How many more years are we going to have these superhero films coming out where all you can say is, it's a movie that exists? Shazam 2 exists, and by the end, nothing really happened. 29 for me is Asteroid City. This is a Wes Anderson movie. After seeing it, I don't think I'm a Wes Anderson fan. This movie had such an amazing cast. There are so many actors that I enjoy seeing in other projects, but they are all wasted in this. Wes keeps diving deeper into his signature style and his great visual set pieces, which are impressive at times, but his style exhausts me. After about 30 minutes, I get sick of it and I want something new. To me, it seems like he sacrifices any real emotion or personality that could come from his stories in order to advance his innovative director's style, which is getting obnoxious. Yes, everyone can recognize a Wes Anderson movie with only one shot, but it seems like that is the only thing that Wes cares about anymore. I mean, this is the definition of style over substance. and it's not for me. I didn't feel anything except annoyed while watching this. 28, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. This year had some surprising good sequels, and some of the same old pointless ones. Indiana Jones 5, starring an 80-year-old Harrison Ford, and not directed by Steven Spielberg, shockingly, was one of the pointless ones. It just feels like a ghost of an Indiana Jones movie. There's not enough exploration of how Indy's life has changed to make it any kind of emotional final chapter, and there's also none of that spark that made the previous film so exciting. Even Crystal Skull had a better ending for this character. Nobody knew what they wanted this movie to be, so it turned out to be nothing. No, it doesn't destroy the past of the franchise like Star Wars did, but it is a mere shell of what it could be. An Indiana Jones film should be special, but instead this is just another legacy sequel past its time. 27 is The Creator. The Creator is just another AI movie. I was really bored and uninterested in this the entire time. Possibly the most forgettable film of the year too. The characters are boring, the themes aren't really saying anything, and the action happened. I'm just tired of this story with nothing new. This is another movie about robots getting close to being like humans, which has been done before in better stories. Blade Runner or even I, Robot did this better. The same moral dilemma is introduced about whether robots are as valuable as humans, but this movie doesn't have anything to say. It's empty and boring. 26 is Blue Beetle. DC really knows how to fill up the bottom of a list. Blue Beetle is apparently the beginning of the next DC universe, which I think was a terrible decision, because this movie might take the crown for the new, most generic superhero story ever told. It has every element and plot beat that we have come to expect from a superhero movie over the past 20 years. Maybe 10 years ago I could enjoy it, but for the introduction to a new universe today, after the peak of the MCU, nothing about this film excites me. There's nothing innovative, but there's also nothing embarrassing. There's nothing special, but there's nothing I really hated. It's just another superhero. Just another legacy sequel, just another AI movie, just another superhero. These are the bland movies of the year. 25 is Haunted Mansion. For the standards of Disney now, this is pretty good. I tolerated this film and was actually able to enjoy a lot of it. The cast is very good, especially Owen Wilson and Lakeith Stanfield, and some parts of this plot were clever and engaging, but by the climax, the story is non-existent. For a movie based on a theme park ride, it had some good things about it, but really it's just something to pass the time and forget about later. Can't say I would really recommend watching it. 24 is Knock at the Cabin. I've avoided most of M. Night Shyamalan's recent movies, which means I can still call myself a fan of his work. Then I saw Knock at the Cabin, and while it is my least favorite of the 6 I've seen from him, I thought it was solid. I'm okay with the idea that this whole movie is set in only one place, in this cabin, but when it asks us to believe that what's happening there is affecting the entire world, it loses some of the stakes for me. Acting and cinematography is well done, but some of the dialogue and weird dramatic sequences don't work. Not bad, not very good. 23. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. I couldn't get into this one at all. I never thought about how annoying the Ninja Turtles could be if they were adapted into Gen Z teenager versions, but now we unfortunately have this movie to show just how bad it can get. The only thing I got from this is how much I hate modern middle schoolers. The Turtles are extremely accurate to how Gen Z middle schoolers act, and that's the problem. It was disgusting to hear the things they said come out of the characters' mouths in a mainstream movie. The references to other things in pop culture would come every couple minutes. The characters were all obnoxious, and the animation was different. Ugly, annoying, weird, on purpose. It will work for some, but not me. 22 is Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. This was fine, but I don't care about it. The plot was dumb. I didn't even know what was happening in some scenes. I don't remember what it was about, but I think the action was kind of cool. This movie could have been something, but it was the most mindless movie of the year. It's another one that's just good for a waste of time and not much more. 21 is Elemental. I spent most of this year avoiding the newest Pixar film because I knew exactly what it was going to be. I even celebrated when it was bombing at the theaters because this looked like another lazy cop-out story from Pixar. It's literally a water person and a fire person. What do you think is going to happen? When I finally watched this, I was surprised to find that it was actually pretty charming and enjoyable, at least more than Lightyear or Luca. It's clearly attempting to be a race metaphor, but that aspect absolutely fell apart as the movie went on, because water and fire actually do not mix. The messaging failed, but the characters were simple and fun. It's actually a decently enjoyable time. Number 20 is Wonka. Okay, so the set pieces are pretty cool and the music can be fun at times, but there's not much to get out of this experience. It's a simple movie about following your dreams, so I'm not sure why they decided to do that with Willy Wonka as the main character, but fine. The side characters were pretty annoying, but Timothée Chalamet was actually good. Overall, Wonka was an innocent, fun adventure, but there's nothing that's really gonna stay with you when it's done. Number 19 is Air. This movie had no business being as engaging as it is. It is impressive that they were able to create any drama out of the story of this shoe, but it turned out to be pretty interesting. It can only be so good though. In the end, we know exactly what is going to happen, so some parts are predictable. Ben Affleck and Matt Damon also make it better than it should be, and the dialogue works very well. I don't know if there's anyone who would say they dislike this movie. It works for what it's trying to be. It may not be the most exciting thing that came out this year, but one thing's for sure. Your dad definitely loved it. 18 is Cocaine Bear. Where has Cocaine Bear been all my life? This bear saved movies once and for all. Why aren't there more movies about bears eating cocaine, gaining superpowers from it, and killing all the annoying characters in the movie? I know that this was one of the worst movies of the year, but it was the theater experience that the world needed at the time. Nobody can tell me they weren't absolutely hyped as soon as they heard the title, Cocaine Bear. Just incredible. 17 is Jesus Revolution. Pretty big difference between Cocaine Bear and Jesus Revolution, in case you couldn't tell. Angel Studios released a couple big movies into theaters this year. This was the only one I saw, but I was glad to see that they're actually making quality movies too, in addition to The Chosen show. Christian movies have never been great. The good ones are very rare, but it looks like Angel Studios is helping to change that. This movie was fun to watch, it was well made, it was hopeful and inspiring, and it was a great retelling of a true story. It also showed that these well-known Christian figures were flawed people, which past Christian movies have failed to do. So I really appreciate this film for being joyful and hopeful for the most part, but also honest. 16 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Yeah, this was good, but part of me still can't shake the feeling of disappointment I felt for the supposed ending of these characters' stories. Okay, yes, this is one of the few recent Marvel films to finally slow down, stop the stupid jokes, and make a good emotional story about these characters. Rocket's backstory is phenomenal, the best part of this film for me, but the main story is just not really good. Everything about the High Evolutionary is so on the nose, it annoys me. There's no subtlety and everything is spelled out for the audience. The fake out deaths are also obnoxious, and the ending when they split up is incredibly disappointing. It's the ending of the group because they said so, not because it makes any sense narratively. There's no reason that they should all go separate ways after all this time, and there really is no good endings for any of them except for Quill finally going back home. I liked this movie. I think Marvel had the right approach for the trilogy ender, but this is not the masterpiece achievement that many have said it is. Number 15 is The Killer. David Fincher's newest film isn't the most influential thing he's ever made, but it's nearly perfect for how simple the premise is. We know next to nothing about the main character except that he keeps getting into deeper trouble as the film goes on. He's just an emotionless, methodical, mysterious man who will never hesitate to do what he thinks needs to be done. The narration and the camera work set the tone for this, and the atmosphere is felt the entire time. There's no character arc, there's no real themes, and there's no twists and turns in the plot, and yet I was locked in and fascinated by this film. Fincher went back to the basics of a crime drama, and he got the job done. 14 is the Super Mario Bros. Movie. The Super Mario Bros. Movie was an absolute blast. I'm not even a huge Mario video game player, but a harmless, fun adventure through this world with these characters was so fun. Each new location and scene was fun and exciting, and Jack Black as Bowser was hilarious. All I can say is, if you don't like this movie, you've never had fun in your life. I don't make the rules. 13 is Creed 3. I'm sad that Rocky didn't have any part of this film, but it is also Creed's franchise now, and I think the transition was very well done. Michael B. Jordan did a great job in his first movie as director. The style shown in the fighting scenes was surprising and effective. I really enjoyed the story incorporating Adonis' past before the first Creed film. No matter how many of these films there are, there's always potential for another great one. The only thing I didn't like was the questionable character arc of Damien. He switches very fast from friend to enemy to friend again by the end, and it didn't feel fleshed out enough. Solid movie though. Number 12 is Gran Turismo. I didn't expect to like this film this much, but it was really cool. It is definitely a predictable story about this kid just sticking with his dream as everyone else doubts him, but I still enjoyed that central story because of the heart put into it that I wasn't anticipating. David Harbour was great, but the highlight I think was the racing scenes. These scenes were shot so well and edited in the most exciting way possible. I was truly impressed by how much I cared about this story, especially because I'm neither a gamer or a racing fan. It was just really well done. Number 11 is Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. I wanted this to be the next greatest Tom Cruise action movie of all time, but there is one unforgivable mistake that holds this movie down a whole 5 spots on the list. I think some people might know what that is already. For the most part, this was another fantastic addition to the series. Every action scene is mind-blowing once again. I think my favorite is the train falling off a cliff sequence, and I was enjoying another trip with this great crew of characters. The AI plot was solid, and some of the new characters were really good too. And then one scene, one decision makes it all fall apart. They killed off one of the best characters in the series for no reason and without a heartfelt or planned out send-off. And then basically gave us a replacement character. If they don't fix this in the next movie, the franchise is ruined for me. If they do fix it, this was an awesome movie. My 10th best movie of the year, John Wick Chapter 4. John Wick 4 takes the crown from Mission Impossible as the best action film of this year. In a franchise as consistently good as John Wick, this conclusion is the best of them all. I didn't know you could give John Wick a satisfying send-off, but this climax absolutely did that, featuring the biggest beatdown John has ever taken yet, while still fighting his way through it and getting free from the high table. The new characters were also fantastic, like the blind guy, the guy with the dog, and the new villain in the Marquis. The action was more brutal than ever here, and it had a great story to go with it, making this the most memorable John Wick movie and the best overall. At number 9, I have The Hunger Games: The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I've talked about how bad some of these franchise movies have been this year, and I wasn't expecting anything better from a Hunger Games prequel. Shockingly, it was a great movie. I didn't even remember who Snow was from the original story, so the way that this film played out, I was conflicted whether I was rooting for him or not. It was a slow descent into evil, and I had no idea what was going to happen next. This film made the concept of the Hunger Games fresh again, and showed how messed up it is better than the original films did. Lucy Gray and all the other victims in the games were such good new characters, and this turned out to be an emotional and tragic, but amazing film. Number 8, here it is, Barbie. I'm still struggling to find the words to describe my experience with this movie. It is so odd, but I do like it. For me, Ryan Gosling as Ken was the highlight. I don't know if that's just because I'm a male and I relate to that part more, but I thought he was a lot more interesting than Barbie. There's some pretty good laughs in here, but that's not really what the hype is about, is it? This is a movie about Barbie, but it's also attempting to be a deep look at the human experience. It has more to say than anyone expected, and I respect the filmmakers for that. I think they also made too much of it about men versus women, which led to some stupid arguments among fans. I like to believe that the point of this film was that the struggles of all people on Earth are worth it in the end, and that it was not about one side being the victims of the other, even though many people will interpret it that way. Barbie has phenomenal sets, colors, characters, and a hopeful message for anyone who sees it. I think it's great. Number 7 is Killers of the Flower Moon. Martin Scorsese once again redefining what it means to make a slow burn movie. This is a slow, meticulous tragedy that stays with you when it's done. Leo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro finally sharing the screen in a Scorsese film did not disappoint, and then there's the new addition Lily Gladstone who kills it as well. Scorsese is very familiar with crime and murder, but this one may be the most heartbreaking one yet. It is disgusting what De Niro's character planned to do and did to the Osage tribe, and this movie doesn't hide from it or sugarcoat it. It is a tragic and heartbreaking story, but even more so because this film is from the victim's perspective. It was a perfect decision by Scorsese, and this was another great film. Number 6, Godzilla Minus One. This movie finally proved that a giant monster movie can also have a great story and quality human characters, and all it took was for Hollywood not to make it. For one, with a much smaller budget, these Godzilla scenes were actually frightening and brutal, and you could feel how hopeless the humans are against Godzilla. All those scenes were incredible, but this film also has an emotional story to tell. The character of Shikishima is the real focus here, and his story is fantastic. He was a kamikaze pilot who bailed, and he was also one of the lone survivors of Godzilla multiple times, giving him extreme survivor's guilt and making him think that he doesn't deserve to build a new life. The conclusion to that arc was very satisfying, and I loved seeing an emotionally powerful story alongside the action that comes with a Godzilla film. Number 5 is The Iron Claw. I had no knowledge of the true story of this family, so the way that this story played out was genuinely shocking and devastating. This movie makes you care about the relationship between these brothers who are happiest with each other, so when the tragedy starts and seems to never end, it's crushing. It introduces some interesting questions about why this family suffered so much, or if any of their success was really worth it. The father's character was fascinating because he only cared about their athletic success. Even at a funeral, he tells his sons that they have to bounce back, treating life like one big wrestling match. The performances from everyone were phenomenal. This was another incredible, powerful, and devastating film. But this one also happened to have a little bit of catharsis at the end. Amazing movie. I can't recommend it enough. Number 4, I put Oppenheimer. Christopher Nolan made a 3-hour movie of people talking into one of the most engaging and thought-provoking movies ever made. His classic way of telling stories non-linearly was used once again in this, which is ambitious since this is a real-life event he's covering. The script is incredible, telling a coherent story that is effective thematically and makes sense with all that jumping through the timeline is amazing. And because of that, I also anticipate that there will always be more to get out of this movie after every single rewatch. This is the most important movie of the last decade because it tells the true haunting story of this one man who changed everyone's future. I don't know what else can be said. Oppenheimer is a perfectly complete film that succeeds in every aspect, making it a chilling dive through this historical event. There are just 3 more movies that clicked with me even more. This was a great year for movies. My 3rd favorite movie of the year is The Holdovers. The Holdovers is the most authentic and human movie that I've seen in a very long time. It just feels so comfortable spending time with these characters in this little world during the holidays. It's a beautiful, humble story about these broken people who gain each other's friendship and learn to help and rely on each other. They all have their different problems and varying experience in the world, and they make for such a fun group that I didn't want to leave behind. The time period was incorporated so nicely and made for even better vibes, and the performances were so great, especially Paul Giamatti and Dominic Sessa in his debut. Just such a real and wonderful experience that hits you in the feels and gives off a feeling of nostalgia and comfort that you can't quite explain. I want to rewatch it 5 or 10 more times. My number 2, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I know everyone likes to complain about how this isn't a complete movie, but they forget what this movie did give us. This is the greatest Spider-Man story yet. It takes every single Spider-Man story so far and everything we expect from them and put a spin on it. We expect Spider-Man to suffer, take tragedy, and become better from it. Across the Spider-Verse asks what would happen if he knew what tragedy would happen beforehand. It is a fascinating conflict, and the antagonist of Miguel O'Hara is a fantastic villain. I understand not liking when a movie seems to only serve as hype for the next movie, but this film is one of the best part 1s that I've seen, because it introduces that central theme and conflict that no previous superhero movie has ever thought about before. The character development and this story tied together through the multiverse is so expertly done, and I can just feel the passion coming from every single frame in this film. My favorite movie of 2023 was Past Lives. I knew exactly what I wanted to talk about as soon as this movie ended. I've seen it twice now, and if there's one word to describe this masterpiece, I would say it is honest. It feels like a direct response to other movies that I've seen. The Notebook and La La Land. Those films both feature the main romance that they focus on and a separate guy who ends up with the girl. Both of those movies force the audience to hate the new guy unfairly because he's in the way of destiny. But that might not really be true. But we don't know because we never got his perspective in those other movies. Past Lives came in and gave justice to the new guy. That's what I mean when I say this film was honest. It took a story that we've seen before, but made us care about all sides and all perspectives this time, just by asking honest questions. It makes for a fantastic human slice of life that is heartbreaking and heartwarming at the same time. It's all about the what-ifs of our past and how differently our lives could be, all while being real, grounded, and beautiful. For me, it was the most powerful film of the year, and I think anyone could find something to connect with in it. Past Lives is my movie of the year. So thanks for watching, everyone. That was my ranking of all the movies I saw that came out in 2023. What was your favorite movie of last year? And how do you think 2023 compared to other years with the quality of its movies? I think it was one of the best in recent years, but tell me your thoughts in the comments. That's it for me. I'll see you next time.